What's up, everyone? Matt Gajewski here, back again with the Odd Shopper channel, and today we're talking some college football. From a betting perspective, it's week 7. This is the Thursday slate. We have 3 games. Love these weeknight games that we are getting. Now we're getting more of them, which is sick. Before we get started, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when this and all other content goes live. We're brought to you by Bet365, and they have a deal for those of you in Kentucky, Ohio, New Jersey, Virginia, Iowa, Colorado, Louisiana, Indiana, Arizona, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania. What you'll do is click the link below, make your first deposit, make a $5 wager on any game, could be a total or a spread. Whether it wins or loses, you are getting $200 in the form of bonus bets, which you can use at your own pleasure. You must be 21 or older to play, 18 in Kentucky. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, we have a triple header on Thursday night, which is awesome because I don't have Amazon Prime and I'm not watching the NFL. You guys already knew that. All right, here is our live odds screen at Odd Shopper. You can take a look at all these games. The 3 you are seeing on the screen: Coastal Carolina takes on James Madison, UTEP, Western Kentucky, and Middle Tennessee takes on Louisiana Tech. We've got a ton of Conference USA on these weekdays, starting to get some Sun Belt, and then, of course, we will dive into the MAC as November rolls around. First one up is our Sun Belt tilt. Coastal Carolina is about a 9.5 underdog to James Madison right now. James Madison has taken a lot of money. It's going to 10 in some spots. A lot of those are still juiced. And then the total in this game, I'll pull you over to that screen. 60.5. There is one lone 61.5 out there, it appears. So very high total in this game. I'll bring you back to the spread. Right away, a couple things stand out to me. Coastal is on the road, which I don't like, but I think they've played the more difficult level of competition, and I think it's not particularly close. Coastal played Jacksonville State, kind of beat the brakes off them. That's not a great team. They're outside the top 100. Same as Temple. That was a closer game than we thought. And then they played Virginia, who's a quality team, and Old Dominion, who's pretty decent themselves. James Madison has played Charlotte Gardner-Webb, North Carolina, which was the noisiest game I think I've ever seen with the special teams and defensive touchdowns. They scored 70 and they gave up 50. Then they played Ball State, who I'm not kidding has the worst defense in the entire country. Before they dropped a game to Louisiana Monroe, 21-19, they had an 80% post-game win expectancy, but they still only averaged 4.9 yards per play to Louisiana Monroe's 4.3, which is concerning. Right away, injury-wise, I think there's more on the Coastal Carolina side. This is tough because you're not going to see good reporting from these teams. As we saw last night, like FIU's beat reporters not even at the game. Coastal Carolina has the same problem. So there were a couple players on defense, especially, that didn't see their full amount of snaps in the last contest. Braylon Ryan at linebacker, 28 snaps. Matthew McDoom, 37. Courtney Eubanks, 38. They played 80 total. So none of those guys were even at half of the snaps, and they generally are playing full-time roles. Sawyer Gorham-Welch at defensive tackle also missed. I'd love to get a report on these guys. I just don't really think we're going to. And that's important because we finally saw a crack in James Madison against Louisiana Monroe on offense. Barnett has been fine. 58% completion percentage for 8.5 yards per attempt. There's a lot of explosives in there, but a lot of plays that lead to nothing as well, as you can see with a completion percentage like that. He is extremely mobile, and the offensive line has kept him extremely clean. 22% pressure rate. They're 22nd in pass blocking, 4th in run blocking. The problem is the skill position players are just extremely lacking for this team. And if Barnett's not making a play, then there aren't very many other players who are. Adeye's been hurt, so they've had Petaway in the backfield. He's been lackluster, and their receivers leave a lot to be desired. Coastal has a decent defense, I think. They're 113th, 126th in run defense, 79th in pass rush, and 72nd in coverage. I think largely that stems from some of the games they played earlier this season. And I mean, this is a team that did allow some production already this year, and I think some of it is just their starters have been banged up. But yeah, I think this Coastal Carolina defense is better than what we might think. Virginia is a quality offense. Somehow Old Dominion scored 37. That's a major concern. In Jacksonville State, they handled. So I don't know. I think this is the spot where they might be a little better than we think. Whereas on the other side, Vasco, he's been just fine, about the same completion percentage as what we've seen from Barnett, 58%. He has 10 yards per attempt. So it's honestly a pretty similar situation. He's been explosive through the air. He's not turning the ball over either. They both have 4 turnover-worthy plays. Vasco is also an elite rusher, 4.5 yards per carry, and this is another pretty good offensive line, 20th in pass blocking, 49th in run blocking. Also somewhat limited at the skill position players. They're rotating receivers. They'll use 6 of them, and then they've had some injuries at running back, but they have gotten a few guys back for that unit. I think these offenses are pretty similar overall. And then on defense, I'm just not sure what James Madison has really done outside of the North Carolina game. And even in that game, backup Jacoby Criswell, averaged 9.9 yards per attempt. All the other quarterbacks have been absolutely terrible. Max Brown, Caden Simonza, Aiden Armenta. I mean, you just look at the schedule. Charlotte, Ball State, Louisiana Monroe. These teams can't move the ball on offense. And they've allowed at least 5.5 yards per carry to at least one ball carrier in every game. Coastal Carolina wants to run the ball. I'm right on the verge of playing a +10 here. I like that there's one that's not so juiced. But honestly, I don't really think there's any rush because James Madison keeps taking money. So maybe by the time this kicks off, you could find a 10.5 or something. With no urgency, I'm just going to wait on this, but I plan on playing some Coastal at some point during the day on Thursday. We'll see where this goes. I'm recording this on Wednesday afternoon. Okay, let's go to our second game, UTEP, Western Kentucky. Okay, this is a doozy. We've had a couple of these Conference USA doozies so far. 19.5 point spread, pretty consensus there. The total in this game, I'll flip us back to that screen for a second. Always takes a while to load. 57.5 is pretty reasonable for a game that has some pace. So I guess to dive into these teams, UTEP has been an absolute utter disaster to start this year, and I'm not sure it's going to get better. They have yet to win a game. They've gotten blown out really in every single game they've played. The only game that they've played within single digits was the FCS team, Southern Utah. They still lost 27-24. If you're looking for a silver lining, they did make a quarterback change. Cade McConnell has come in. The only positive I can really say is I don't think he's quite as bad as Locklear, but he's different. He doesn't run as much, but 58% completion. He has 5 big-time throws and 6 turnover-worthy plays. That's better than Locklear, so you at least have that working for you. This team is still hurt, though. They just lost Jaden Smith, one of their starting receivers. Their O-line, shockingly to me, 53rd in pass blocking, 108th in run blocking. This is not as bad of a unit as I thought, but it's still an air raid offense, and they've had a lot of trouble getting the ball to their playmakers consistently because of the turnover-worthy plays. We need McConnell to cut these down if they're going to have life in any of these contests. Just flat out needs to happen. On defense, Western Kentucky's 80th overall, 23rd against the run, 47th in pass rush, 125th in coverage. They've only really stopped Tucker Gleason from Toledo and Grayson James, the backup for Boston College. Couple concerning data points. Nearly 15 yards per attempt to Middle Tennessee's Nick Vadiato, who is one of the worst offensive lines in the country. Makes it really hard for me to decipher this. How do you stop, theoretically, a decent signal caller in Gleason and then a power 4 signal caller, even though backup in James, but allow 15 yards per attempt to one of the worst offenses in the country? I'm just not sure. The one thing you can hang your hat on is they've been elite against the run, so UTEP doesn't want to do that anyway. If they do, for whatever reason, they should stand pretty tall here. The last thing I'll say is maybe there is some untapped potential for UTEP because their slate has been pretty difficult. Nebraska is a top 30 defense. Southern Utah is Southern Utah. Liberty is a solid defense on paper. Colorado State is the worst team they've played on defense so far this year. And then Sam Houston plays good defense. So it's not been all cupcake defenses for UTEP so far. Perhaps there is a little bit left when they start facing teams closer to where they are in terms of talent. But I'm not sure about that right now. Western Kentucky, Caden Veltkamp has been awesome since taking over for TJ Finley. He should keep the job regardless of Finley's health, even though we're not expecting him back. Good mobility. He hasn't even used it that much. And then completion percentage north of 70%, 8.2 yards per attempt. He's run bad on turnovers. He has exactly 4 interceptions and 4 turnover-worthy plays. The O-line is okay, 73rd in pass blocking, 79th in run blocking. They did lose a guard, Blake Austin, so that's worth noting. But this offense has been humming of late, and I don't really think this changes. They've had a strong pass game. That's pretty normal for them. And UTEP is 114th in total defense. They're 115th in coverage. They also have 2 injuries in their secondary that need to be monitored. AJ Odoms missed their last game at corner, and Corey Chapman missed at safety. I'm not sure if that will get reported on, but it's worth noting here. Ultimately, I think there is the opportunity to maybe take an over here. I think Western Kentucky is going to score points on this defense, especially if UTEP has some injuries. Even if they don't, it might not matter because they've been just hemorrhaging points. They allowed 41 to Sam Houston, who is one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen. Western Kentucky should do their part. And right now, the implied team totals for this team, I guess with the total, implies a score of something like 38-19. So can Western Kentucky get to 40? Absolutely. Both these teams are top 28 in pace. Can UTEP do their part? I tentatively lean yes, because you have McConnell coming in. He's been better than Locklear. And then this team has played some pretty tough defenses. Again, Western Kentucky's not great on defense, but they're not bad either. They are 125th in coverage. So potentially a crack that could be exploited for UTEP. I think 57 is worthwhile, but this is another one where I think you might get a better number just by waiting. So I haven't seen a 56.5 yet. As I pull up the screen, there is one 56.5. It is at FanDuel. Interesting. That one might be one we have to play. Hadn't seen that earlier, but we'll be monitoring and seeing where this goes. Looks like it's going up. So I guess 56.5 should probably be a go here. I'll take a look at this after the show ends. Last one up here, the greasiest of all, I think. We have Middle Tennessee State taking on Louisiana Tech. It's a 4.5-point spread in favor of Louisiana Tech. The total in this game is 49 points, which is a little surprising to me. But both these teams are very hard to evaluate, I guess, as almost every team on this slate is. Middle Tennessee enters this game with 1 win. It's against Tennessee Tech. Other than that, they lost to Ole Miss in blowout fashion, Western Kentucky blowout fashion, Duke blowout fashion. Memphis, they kept it close. And honestly, some of these games could have been closer than the score indicates. Against Western Kentucky, for reference, they averaged 9.5 yards per play. Western Kentucky was at 8.8. Just a lot of noise in that game. Middle Tennessee had a million turnover on downs. So, I mean, I think this team has played a little better than their record indicates. Louisiana Tech is similar. They have a win over Nichols, but then they lost to NC State. In the game, McCall got hurt. That was 30-20. They had an overtime loss to Tulsa, 23-20. They got beat by FIU, 17-10, who just played Liberty very close, but very tough to evaluate Conference USA right now. As it stands, Middle Tennessee comes into this with Nick Vattiato at quarterback. He's been pretty good this year, but he has a lot of turnover issues, 9 turnover-worthy plays, only 4 interceptions. It's not all his fault. The offensive line is causing pressure almost every time he's dropping back. 134th in pass blocking, 113th in run blocking. This is the worst pass blocking unit in the country. And it makes sense. They've lost 3 starters in the offensive line. Both tackles and their center are already hurt. No update on them. It's Middle Tennessee. Don't expect one. We just have flat out no idea what's going to happen here. It's hurt their ability to run the ball. They are projected to get back Frank Peason tonight and Jakyle Middlebrook, which I guess should be a boost, but who's blocking for them? It's a huge question, in my opinion. Plus, theoretical wide receiver 1, Javonte Sherman's been out. So it's been pretty rough sailing for this team. As far as Louisiana Tech's defense goes, they're 126th, 99th against the run, 117th in pass rush, 117th in coverage. And they have faced a terrible slate of quarterbacks. CJ Bailey, Kirk Francis, Keon Jenkins for FIU. Maybe it doesn't matter, all these injuries in what we've seen from Middle Tennessee. That's possible because this Louisiana Tech defense does not look any good whatsoever. On the Louisiana Tech side, they changed quarterbacks. They moved to Evan Bullock, who, similar to the other quarterback changes we've talked about, has just been more stable. It's a very small sample on him, but his 70% completion, 6.2 yards per attempt, 1 score, no picks. He does have 2 turnover-worthy plays. He can't run the ball. This offensive line is a little better than Middle Tennessee. They're 62nd in pass blocking, 133rd in run blocking. So this team can't run the ball, which shouldn't surprise anybody. But I think their receivers are pretty decent so far. They're the healthier team by far, and they will be playing a defense in Middle Tennessee who's, first of all, not very good. They're 129th in total defensive efficiency, 124th against the run, 133rd in pass rush, 101st in coverage. they have a lot of players flagged for injuries. Devin Curtis, Deshaun Elder, 2 linebackers, De'Aaron McDonald, Brendan Harris, and Trayvon Farrell in their secondary. I mean, you have no idea who's going to play for Middle Tennessee. I don't buy Louisiana Tech necessarily. I mean, both these defenses, Louisiana Tech's 126, Middle Tennessee 129. I think Middle Tennessee's played by far the more difficult slate of opponents, but then Middle Tennessee's the more injured team. The line's already moved too. Like at 5.5, I had this flagged. The injuries held me off, but then people with more heart and courage than me bet Middle Tennessee. Now at the 4.5 number, I think this is just a pure stay away. Perhaps something live if it looks like, they can't get home on this defense. Middle Tennessee can get home on this defense, that is. I don't know. Just a disaster. But that'll do it for us. The 2 best bets, I think, are going to be Coastal at a +10 and then an over in that UTEP game. Still waiting on numbers myself, but that's likely where my best bets are going to be for tonight. 3 game slate on Friday. We'll have it covered. Myself and Ben Raza already did the main slate for Saturday for betting you, and we'll have our Thursday show with the greasier games, a lot of fun MAC games, and some others, Sunbelt, of course, that we'll talk about. Until then, good luck, everyone. We will see you next time.